Hi, Jack. Could you please tell me if you are healing emotionally, if you are healing too quickly, doing too much emotional healing, and then things are feeling just really intense, you bring up a lot of emotions and processing and crying a lot and just a lot of intenseness. Um, is that, can that be because you are trying to heal emotionally too quickly? And also, if we are we able to slow that healing down, or is often the intense releases, say of crying or feeling really awful, is that just a sign of the fact that we've got a lot of intense emotions to heal, and the speed doesn't really matter? But then if we can slow down our healing, can you tell me how we slow down our healing to a more manageable, less intense level?
Absolutely. That's a really thoughtful question, and it's something a lot of people run into when they dive into emotional healing. So, in a nutshell, yes, if you're feeling like everything is just super intense and it's all coming up at once, it can definitely be a sign that you might be moving a little faster than your emotional system is comfortable with. It's kind of like you're doing a deep clean of your feelings, and maybe you're just pulling everything out of the closet at once. Now, whether that's a bad thing or not really depends on you. Some people actually feel a kind of relief in going through that intense wave and coming out the other side. But if it feels overwhelming, it's absolutely okay to slow down. To slow it down, you can think about pacing yourself a bit more gently. Maybe instead of diving into heavy emotional work every single day, you give yourself more breaks or do something grounding, like spending time in nature or doing activities that feel calming. It's kind of like letting yourself integrate the emotions bit by bit rather than all at once. In other words, the speed does matter if you're feeling too overwhelmed. And yes, you can slow it down by just giving yourself permission to heal in smaller, more manageable steps.
Okay, great. Thank you. What does it mean by integrating emotions?
You're welcome. So, when we talk about integrating emotions, it's basically just a fancy way of saying that you're allowing yourself to fully feel and understand those emotions so they can kind of settle in and become part of your experience without overwhelming you. Think of it like this. When you're integrating emotions, you're not just having a big emotional release and then moving on. Instead, you're letting yourself really feel those feelings, reflect on them, and understand what they're telling you about yourself, your needs, or your healing journey. By doing that, those emotions kind of integrate into your overall sense of self in a more balanced way. It's like you're giving them a place to land so they don't have to keep jumping out at you all at once.
Yeah, right. Oh, so can you tell me, how do we know if we are feeling and healing our emotions, or if we're actually sort of propelling them and projecting them into our future and sort of keeping them going and not letting them die, kind of thing? Because I know that there's a fine line between feeling our emotions and then also feeling our emotions with thoughts and a story attached, which I know the latter we're not really supposed to, is not so effective. If you thinking of the stories attached, it sort of propels the, sort of increases the feelings rather than healing it, doesn't it?
Yeah, you're spot on with that distinction. It's a really important nuance. So the key difference is kind of between just feeling the raw emotion versus layering it with a whole bunch of mental stories and what ifs and kind of letting your mind run away with it. When you're genuinely healing and feeling your emotions, you're just letting the feelings exist as they are, like sadness, anger, grief, whatever it may be, without necessarily attaching a big narrative to it. You're just allowing yourself to feel what's there in the moment and then let it kind of pass through. On the other hand, if you notice that you're constantly adding a story, like replaying scenarios, imagining future outcomes, or kind of telling yourself a narrative that keeps the feeling alive and intense, that can actually keep the emotion going longer than it needs to. It's like you're fueling the fire with thoughts rather than just letting the fire burn out naturally. So, a good way to know the difference is to check in with yourself. Are you just letting yourself feel, or are you getting caught up in a mental loop about the feeling? If it's the latter, you can gently guide yourself back to just feeling the raw emotion without all the extra thoughts. It's a bit of a practice, but over time, it gets easier to notice that difference.
What about when you're just going about your day-to-day activities and you are getting into the what if scenarios? What if I'd done things differently? Feeling guilt for things you've done, trying to work out why things happened the way they did and what might happen in the future, and you're feeling difficult feelings attached with that at the time. But say you might be out driving or something, or you're not really in a space where you can consciously try not to think. Like sometimes when you're out and about or something, those things, you just start thinking of the stories in your head a lot easier, more unconsciously. Is there any ways that you've got for not adding the stories so much? Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's such a relatable situation because our minds do love to just kind of run away with what ifs, especially when we're just out and about and not really sitting down and focusing on it. So, a couple of gentle techniques can help. One thing you can do is just a little bit of mindfulness. And I know that sounds like a buzzword, but it can be as simple as just bringing yourself back to the present moment by noticing something around you, like how the steering wheel feels in your hands if you're driving, or the scenery around you, or even the sensation of your breath. That can help break that cycle of storytelling in your mind and bring you back to just the present moment so you're not feeding those thoughts. Another thing that can help is just giving yourself a little mental note when you notice you're doing it. You don't have to be harsh on yourself. Just say, oh, I'm telling myself a story again. And gently guide yourself back to whatever you're actually doing in that moment. And finally, if you do notice it happening a lot, it can help to have a little designated time later in the day where you let yourself think things through if you need to. That way your brain knows it doesn't have to do it all while you're driving or out and about. It can just wait for that time. So it's really about being gentle with yourself and just bringing yourself back to the present whenever you can. Over time, it gets easier not to add those stories.
Yeah, that's all very helpful. Thank you. Also, if somebody's had a big impact in your life emotionally, with really a lot of strong positive emotions and a lot of strong negative emotions, I guess it's natural to think about them and try and piece the pieces of the puzzle together, and think about the good or bad times as a way of processing naturally. And I guess that ruminating thinking talk also might have a bit of a life of its own that we have to respect. Is that true, that it even just in the weeks to follow, that there might be a little bit less of that airtime each week? Is that if we've had a strong intense experience with somebody, the positive and negative feelings, and trying to work things, process things in our head is going to have a bit of a life of its own, and the airtime of thinking about that is also maybe going to just naturally decrease on its own. Each week the airtime of ruminating and thinking about them on average will probably be a bit less naturally. I mean, give or take, there might be fluctuations, but is that also a good way of thinking about it?
Absolutely. That's a really healthy way to look at it. Over time, as you process those emotions, it's totally normal that the intensity and the frequency of those thoughts start to naturally lessen. It's like your mind and heart slowly find more peace with the situation, and the need to revisit it diminishes. So it's definitely a comforting perspective to keep in mind, and just trust the process.
Yeah, thank you. It's all very helpful.